With the launch of Internet Nobodies finally here, and a drive from me to make the best content possible as of late, we'll see how long that holds up. It's finally time I face my fears and make a video I've talked about for a long time. I can think of no better time than now to talk about my favorite game of last year. I'm your host, Terrell, and this week on TGRS, I'm going to be taking a look at Fire Emblem Three Houses. While my favorite game of last year it is, I didn't start out with any hype for it, and remember actively tuning it out during Nintendo Directs when they would talk about it. The game really just wasn't on my radar. When it came time for it to launch, I didn't even realize it had come out, so had it not been for these crazy circumstances, I wouldn't have even known that the game had come out or cared about its existence. It's actually a funny little story how I got to picking up the game. So my friend, while at work, had a coworker who was all about this game and would talk about it over work because it was one of their favorite franchises and they kind of wanted to stir up some enjoyment, some hype, and some interest for people who weren't so interested. After a while of talking about it, my friend finally goes and picks it up for themselves. They started playing it and was really enjoying it, would talk to me about it most of the time. Then on one random night we were out at GameStop and they handed it to me and that was that. I went home, started playing it, they were walking me through some of the stuff. It wasn't an instantaneous love for the game, but I did grow to love it a lot, and now I can definitely say I'm a fan and excited for the next installment. It's weird how domino effects can really just happen like that in your life. This game was the recipient of the Strategy Game of the Year awards from the Game Awards last year. And for good reason, as it's the game that, while through my research I was able to learn is the greatest departure from other in its series, allowing for more overall freedom in the way you want to play, all while having a low barrier of entry for newcomers and hooks them in with addictive gameplay loops that are just so satisfying and will leave you playing at your Switch for hours at a time. After properly arriving at the monastery, you are asked to go around and meet with those same leaders that you had just saved, and see which one is the class you may want to teach. You have options between, Edelgard and the Black Eagles, Dimitri and his Blue Lions, and some might just say, the best leader and class, Claude and his Golden Deer. Fear the deer, folks. For the purposes of this video, though, my footage predominantly comes from my Blue Lions run, so they're also a fantastic class. Anyway, I got ahead of myself there. It should be noted that depending on what class you pick, the storyline does branch from all of the other ones. They're all intertwined, but how the game fully plays out is dependent on a couple of things, so multiple playthroughs are encouraged by me, just as an upfront thing. After you first pick your class, the whole hub world that is Garrick Mach completely opens itself up to you, and the game wants you to explore it. It's completely packed with stuff to do, which in the little research I did seems to be a real overhaul to the hub worlds of the series past, if they had one at all. Things that you can do and are not completely limited to are talking to your students, cooking and eating with them, gardening, training for competitions, fishing, praying, and many more. But you can ensure that if you are going to do it in any way, you better go fast as fuck, boy. This also leads directly into the gameplay loop. Based around a month system, you have a mission at the end of the month, and you need to decide the best way to go about preparing for that. This will vary depending on what your students need and if they particularly need happiness for the week. You can explore, attend a seminar, train for battles, or rest, so that way your whole class is ready for actual class on Monday. The weekly class feature is the secret to the newfound customization for your units. In previous titles, unit customization was almost non-existent, and getting mastery classes for them was, well, there was no incentive to even try and use seals on them because their levels would reset and effectively make them worse. So you couldn't even think about changing their assigned roles if that was the case. This has been completely overhauled thanks to the weekly classes for your students. If done early enough and paired with the right items, you can have the complete freedom making your students be any role you could want. While the game does have overall preferences on what students should play, they're not set in stone, and you can go pure Mad Lad and make them whatever you want. I keep saying students. Thing is, who are these students? Well, for this review's purposes, we'll be looking at the Blue Lions. First up, we got house leader and heir to the throne, Dimitri, and he's just a completely normal boy. Take my word for it. His right hand is Dudu, a heavy-hitting quiet boy who's big and lovable and a fantastic cook. Next up is Felix, and he's slow to warm up to you, but as you show him the skill in combat, he'll show you more respect. Then there's Ingrid. She's incredibly determined and will become a fantastic knight. Then there's Sylvain. He's always hitting on the ladies at the school, outside of the school, and anything that moves on the planet. Fun little fact though, Ingrid, Sylvain, Felix, and Dimitri have been friends since they were little. Mercedes is pretty much the mom of the group and your main healer. She also has a weird tendency to also hit on just about everyone in the class, including you. Then there's Ash, another quiet boy, who's a great shot with a bow and has a distinct love for reading. Also loves to cook, and him and Dudu are cooking bros. And last but certainly not least is Annette, a little clumsy but is determined to be the best. She's one of the best, in my opinion. Now that's just the base Blue Lions class, but you are completely able to recruit other students from the other classes. But you can only recruit them by ranking up the stats that they're interested in. But have warning, there is a time limit to how long you can do this. You can get to know as many or as little of the other students and staff as deep as you want through the support system, as well as you can see the students and staff deepen their bonds through that as well. All of these things that you can do in the monastery generally will help build support between you and your students and other faculty, only with a few exceptions to that. Three Houses strikes its gameplay balance between an open hub and class assignment system and the battle tactics of the monthly missions. For me, that was just what continued to make me want to push forward with the game and see those large story progression moments that would sometimes leave me playing the actual fight for 45 minutes to an hour at times. The monthly missions are the big story points that always tie into some of the toughest battles. They consist of kinda what I like to think of as chess. There's a few expectations and multiple ways to go about it, and you can always start differently every time you play through it. It allows for a lot of creativity when it comes to building strategies, and it may even be rewarding to pull off one that you didn't think was going to work. Now, the game doesn't leave you without any guidance. There are times where students will tell you and give you ideas on how to go about the battle, but they're not really needed to be followed, and you can just kind of play it as you see. It's your game and your brain. I'm fucking not going to tell you what to do with it. Actually, I'm going to tell you what to do a little bit. Have your students together in battle if you really want the supports to go up, because if they fight together, it's one of the easiest ways to get support points. Keep in mind, depending on the type of unit you have in battle, matters. It's rather hard for me to explain. It's kind of a weird star thing that is what's the strength and weaknesses chart now instead of the how it was in games past. In games past, it was kind of relied on this triangle combat system, or some called it a rock paper scissors system. Now it's more complex with the magic and the gauntlets and all the other things kind of throwing into this mix makes more of a grid, and now combat is very much more situation based. It's hard for me to compare since I never really knew or played with the old system, but I do like what they ended up doing with the combat in this system, and I think it's more engaging to make you think a little bit more, because there are strengths and weaknesses, and you should probably know most of them before you put a unit in a certain spot for battle. Anyway, the game offers two options when starting the game on how difficult it'll be. There was the basic normal and hard, but then they later added in the difficulty called maddening, and I'm not going to talk about that one, it's scary. As well as there's a choice between casual mode or classic mode. Casual mode is if your students fall in combat, it will continue as if they never did, they're just out for the round. But in classic, if someone falls, they're fucking dead. No questions, no second chances. Every move can be their last. Don't worry, no pressure or anything. Because there is a way to turn back time in this game. Yes, it's kind of weird, it's kind of strange, But if you do end up in this unfortunate scenario where you done fucked it up, you can hit LZ button, I believe, and then you are given this screen where it kind of breaks a time-shattering glass effect, and then you can go back as many turns as you want to try again. It could have just been one false move, or it could have been a completely bad idea from the beginning. This way, you don't get the game over. It's kind of a better way than, just continuously failing at a game over screen. I like it. I think you would too. Also, I'm serious about the no pressure with the casual mode thing. I play on casual mode for most of my playthroughs, and yeah, I will be planning on challenging myself here soon, but, it's whatever. I feel like I need to wrap back around to the story a bit. I normally don't. I usually leave it kind of vague just so you can experience the story for yourself. But this time, I described the loop earlier and how it just kind of goes between classes, battles, Garrett Mach battles, stuff like that. The circumstances do change. Regardless of the path that you choose, there is a full-on attack and war that happens in the game from the Equestrian Empire's siege on Garrett Mach under the command of Edelgard. Though this does lead to a time skip in the game, which in every path varies drastically compared to what they were. They're all fairly similar up until that point. In terms of the story, that just makes all three of them kind of jump out separate windows, and that's where your class really matters. And it's really cool to actually see them come back post-time skip with their different looks and appearances, and now you're not so much teaching them as you're leading them as kind of like a commander. And I find it all just so much fun, and that is where it really starts to hook me every time, is seeing the different perspectives of this war, of these students, and how they're dealing with it now that they're back home in their respective countries and having to deal with an actual war. Fire Emblem is one of those games that never has relied on its graphical appearance to make a stand, but more on its story and its colorful cast of characters. But I will say the team did a fantastic job with the scale of Garrett Mach, and while the frame rate isn't as good and some of the textures are a bit muddy, I will say that it is impressive to see them, taking this step in this direction with what they did accomplish. And it does look pretty good. It may not be, Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey, but it does an amazing job making you feel like, yeah, this is a giant medieval castle. There are a ton of students and everything. And what they did really, really well is in the character designs. All of them have amazing amounts of detail, I think at least, and they're just fantastic. And you can customize them as you go through and stuff like that too. It's really kind of nice to do. But the music, that's just a completely another story. The game has an amazing soundtrack, and I absolutely love it. There are spots that it kind of gets repetitive over time in gameplay, but I still find myself pulling it up on YouTube and listening to songs and tracks that are in the game. It just makes it a new phenomenal experience that it takes it to that next level, you know what I mean? There's a link down below in the description for you guys to go experience it yourself. Nintendo is one of the few companies I always consider buying DLC for, as they tend to have a fair price on their season passes, and it's not just cut content from the game. It's still a true addition to the game that you already received, and you always get your money's worth. And here, I see it as no exception. They added a lot of little things over the game's lifespan of the past year, but it finally all culminated into the big storyline DLC, which was the Asian Wolves. This adds a new story and goes through a different outlook and perspective as to what was going on. It doesn't directly tie in. It's not like a new class, but it is a side story, so that's to be expected. It has some of the toughest battles in the entire game, as well as new characters to fight in those battles. I would say if you plan to pick up 3 houses, you may as well get the season pass as well. It's an extra $20, and now you can also play 3 houses and a basement. While this review may not be as in-depth as James's DMC5 review, god damn, that thing's so fucking long. I really love this game, and I think everyone should experience it. While it may not be everyone's cup of tea, and I get that, it has a special place in my heart, really, because it's the thing that got me into more long-term RPGs, and what has really broken me out of, like, this FPS comfort zone that, you know, I had been stuck in for a long time. Yeah, I played other types of games, but it was rare that I varied too far away. Now I'm just completely trying to expand my horizons, and I'm really happy about that. And I also I can only look back on Fire Emblem Three Houses with a lot of fond memories. Not just with playing the game and loving its odd, at times, story, but also its characters, but also the good memories of talking with my friend about the game for days on end and watching memes about it and, you know, just kind of getting involved in a different community that was new and completely foreign to me. So, big shout out and thank you to Caitlin for helping me with some of the footage for this video. You're amazing, you're great, and to be honest, this video wouldn't exist had you not been like, here, play this game. So, you know, thanks. Thank you guys for watching another installment of TGRS here on Internet Nobodies. I'm really happy to finally have gotten this one out for you guys. I've been really nervous about it, and I kept putting it off because of my nerves. I didn't know if I was actually capable of making a quality video for it, but I feel like this is the time for me to really pull it together and make something amazing. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're new around here, please do subscribe and click the bell so that way you can receive notifications from us when we do post every single day. Next week is Matthew's week, and I hope he has something incredibly special planned. As far as I can tell, I think he does. So I'll be seeing you guys in the next one. Take care.